It's the second round of the 2026 British GT Championship, and the British GT Championship rolls in to the Oulton Park circuit in the northwest of England, the venue that for many a year played host to the opening rounds of the championship, but a shake-up of the calendar for this season saw us kick things off a few weeks ago at Silverstone, and now we head to what is, I'm delighted to say, a gloriously sunny Oulton Park this bank holiday weekend. Ambient temperatures in the low to mid-20s. Track temperatures significantly warmer than that. It's a fabulous circuit, a real driver's favourite, and for good reason. It packs an awful lot of punch into the nearly 2.7 mile length. Lots of undulation, some high speed corners. It's a surprisingly high average speed here, with only really those two chicanes at Britons and Hislops to slow the cars down. It's got a real old school feel to it, and in these qualifying sessions coming up this afternoon, the drivers have a real opportunity to unleash their cars to their full potential and try to score themselves at least one pole position for the pair of 60-minute races to come on Monday. Well, as I said, we've got a busy grid of cars and a couple of returning faces. Bryn Lucas is down in the pit lane to tell us more.
Down the pit. I'm also in the shade, which is a good idea, I think. Aaron Walker is alongside me. Aaron, you had your first taste already at Silverstone. It was, bumped up 2 places because the cars ahead of you weren't running in the championship. You've now got a teammate in the car. There was a one-off entry at Silverstone, so a new driver pairing for you.
Yeah, it's great to have Ian in the car. He's obviously very experienced in British GT from his previous endeavours and with the Mercedes-AMG. He's been very strong so far, so we'll see how he goes, but yeah, I expect big things.
And what's it like as a relationship with him then? How much have you had to adapt? Is he quite easy to deal with? Do you have similar driving styles?
Yeah, me and Ian drive quite similarly. He's a really easy guy to work with, fully gets on with it. Very, very happy to be coached as well, so it's a really good partnership for me.
Lovely. He said to me it sort of happened because he had a bit too many glasses of the good stuff one evening and had a phone call at the right time. Now, when it comes down to the championship itself, the points don't really matter. You are part of the SRO GT Academy, so tell me a bit about that and being part of it. Yeah,
to be part of the SRO GT Academy is a really big thing for me. I think it's great what they're doing, putting on prizes to try and help us silver drivers into making this a career. Yeah, it's really impressive and definitely a really good thing that SRO brought in, and I hope they keep it around for a while for other people.
It's a fantastic prize. Maybe you could be at Spa 24, the CrowdStrike Spa 24 next year. Just quickly looking at today then at Oulton Park, it's sunny, it's very, very bright, we know that. We saw the Ginettas earlier on sliding around all over the place because of just, what it's like with track temperature. How much is that playing into your minds? What can this car do? What can you two do?
Yeah, I think the higher track temperatures probably help us, being a naturally aspirated car. The turbo cars like the cool air. So yeah, it being hotter definitely helps us more.
Wish you the very best luck. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you very much.
Yes, well, interesting stuff there that Aaron's talking about. The new for 2026 SRO GT Academy. For any silver-graded drivers under the age of 30, they're eligible. There is a fairly complex scoring system. It's not just based on your race results, but also your performance within the race. So if you have incidents, penalties, things like that, it counts against you. They're running a similar competition in GT World Challenge Asia, America and Australia. And a team of 4 drivers who won that competition will be racing together at the Spa 24 Hours next season. Aaron Walker hoping to be one of those drivers. So pit lane then, a hive of activity as the cars prepare themselves for the first of 4 qualifying sessions to come. If you're new to British GT, or if you tuned in perhaps for the first time at Silverstone a few weeks ago, well, you're about to see a slightly different qualifying format at Silverstone. There were 2 sessions per class, GT3 and GT4, and it was an average time, or a combined time I should say, across both drivers that set the grid. Here, because we've got 2 races on Bank Holiday Monday, 60 minutes apiece, we have a qualifying session for each race. So this session will set the GT3 grid for race 1. The second session, which follows, will set the grid for race 2, and then we repeat the process with 2 sessions for GT4. They're 10-minute sessions. You don't get a lot of time to get a good lap in, and so those who are particularly keen to get on with this have got themselves to the front of the queue in the pit lane as that pit lane opens and the session gets underway. There we see the number 77 Optimum Motorsport car, Morgan Tilbrook and Ben Barnacote. It's the AM drivers who are out in the first session because they will start race 1. The pros then start race 2, so they qualify for race 2. So you'll start the race that you qualified for, essentially. A couple of teams less keen to get themselves out on track. The Beach Dean Aston Martin of Andrew Howard only now makes its way down the pit lane. Andrew Howard, two-time British GT champion, made his debut getting on for 20 years ago now in the category, but he's got a tough task to try and repeat that in 2026. You'd have to say the championship is so much more competitive these days, but Andrew Howard still a very rapid and he'll be hoping to be a factor in this first qualifying session of the day. So the drivers will have a lap or two maybe to warm themselves up, and then they'll have only a couple of laps realistically to set a time before the session's over. And it's a relatively short turnaround between the sessions as well, so you've got to get the car in so that your teammate then gets the full 10 minutes to try and set a time in part 2 of qualifying. Perhaps the most significant qualifying sessions of the season as well, because Oulton Park is notoriously difficult to overtake at, so the drivers tell us anyway. It is narrow, it's tight, it's very technically demanding, difficult to launch an attack on the cars around you sometimes. So qualifying towards the front of the grid is absolutely pivotal. First driver then to go on to a lap is Mark Smith in the Paddock Motorsport McLaren. He heads around Old Hall Corner, down the avenue through the right-hand kink at Denton's, and then we turn left at reasonably high speed through Cascades. There's a good amount of camber through that corner, though, which then runs out quite quickly on corner exit. Really important to get a good exit from that turn, because there's then a long drag down past the lake and into the quick left-hander at Island Bend. That's where Sector 1 ends. Sector 2 takes you through the hairpin and the two chicanes, and then Sector 3 essentially is the final two corners at Druids and Lodge. This is the 77 Optimum McLaren of Morgan Tilbrook, who's entering into his 6th season now racing in British GT. His 2nd season with Optimum Motorsport. He is a former race winner in the championship, and he's always gone quite well here. Had a lot of experience actually racing at Oulton Park in the Fun Cup Endurance Championship, which was where he did much of his early racing before stepping up into GT machinery. He has been a regular front runner ever since. The sectors, though, so far, I know this is very early days, the first flying lap of the session, but it's actually the number 90 car fastest in Sector 1 of Mark Warren, the other Optimum McLaren. McLaren, you think, is a good car for Oulton Park, but actually Lamborghini and Mercedes historically have been sort of the favourite cars around here. 9 of the last 11 Oulton Park races won by either a Lamborghini or a Mercedes, but at least one of those races that wasn't won by those brands was McLaren. We've seen McLaren go well here in the past. Mid-engine cars do tend to like this very technical circuit, so I wonder whether that's going to be the story here this weekend. There goes Andrew Howard through the Hislop chicane, the front-engined Aston Martin, with a lovely new livery on the Beechdene Aston Martin for 2026, I have to say. And he's going quickly, actually. In the first sector is Andrew, quickest of anyone, although that's now been beaten by Mark Smith on his 2nd lap. Across the line goes the 90 car, that's Mark Warren, and he sets the provisional fastest time of the session, a 1:34.2. Is that going to be beaten by Andrew Howard, I wonder? He turns his way through Lodge Corner, accelerates up and over Deers Leap. The cars burst back into sight across the start-finish area. It's not a straight, as you can see. There's no such thing really here at Oulton Park. It's the 2nd fastest time for Andrew Howard, just under 0.3 of a second off the top time. But look, we've got McLarens. Well, 4 of the top 6 cars were McLarens until the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis came through. Rob Collard, who's won a race here at Oulton Park on both of his previous 2 visits with British GT, goes 2nd quickest ahead of his teammate Alex Martin. But I do suspect they will not be the fastest times of the session. These Pirelli tyres more than capable of hanging in for 2 or 3 laps, although very warm temperatures today, so that might just limit the longevity of the tyre. The tyre is perfectly capable of running for the duration of a full stint around here, but optimal lap time perhaps only to be found in laps 1 or 2. Back through goes the number 9 car, and almost to prove that point, Mark Smith went fastest of anybody in the first sector, didn't improve in sectors 2 and 3, so he stays down in 5th position. Rob Collard has gone personal best in sector 1, but not quite as quick, about 0.2 slower than the current fastest time in that sector set by Mark Warren. Collard, though, who's done many a lap around here, initially in his very, very successful British Touring Car Championship career, but latterly in British GT. He is a double British GT champion. 2020 and 2 years ago in 24, and as I said, he's always gone well here at Oulton Park. In fact, thinking back to the touring car days, he always used to circle this as one of his favourite tracks on the calendar, did Rob, and he would love to stand back on the top step of the podium for a third consecutive year in British GT. What's he got for us? 2 personal bests in the first 2 sectors, and he goes second quickest, 58 thousandths away from pole position. So that's okay, but yeah, you can see there's a little grimace on the face of a couple of the team members there. Rob only needed to find a fraction of a second more, and he could have been on provisional pole, although those goalposts might be about to move because Mark Warren is going quickly in the first sector. Andrew Howard actually is now the new pole sitter. I missed that, so the Beechdene Aston Martin has set now the fastest time of the session, and Mark Warren, who was on pole a couple of minutes ago, now finds himself off the front row. Purple first sector though, that means quickest of anybody. What's the middle sector? A 1:08.0 is what he's aiming for. That's Andrew Howard's lap time to this point. He's a 1/10 of a second exactly down. But you can make a 1/10 of a second if you're really brave through Druids, carry the speed through the double apex right-hander. He looked maybe a little wide of the apex there. And now he tries to spot his braking zone into Lodge. He's got the Simon Orange-driven McLaren ahead by the looks of it. In fact, oh, and off goes Tilbrook. Morgan Tilbrook off the road. So he did have the Simon Orange McLaren ahead, but he also had the 77, which had a rotation coming out of Lodge, and I wonder whether there was a yellow flag. There would have been a yellow flag for that, and that might have delayed Mark coming through the final corner. So that meant he had to lift off the throttle, lost the 10th or so, and in the end, it's not an improvement. So Andrew Howard, at the moment, on pole position. When was the last Andrew Howard pole position, I wonder? We'll have to consult the record books for that. Lap time disallowed anyway, actually, for Mark Warren. Look for track limits at Cascades. That was the lap that we were just watching, so that lap isn't going to count anyway. Jack Brown, we caught a glimpse of there, was readying himself for action. He'll be taking this car over for session 2, which is only a couple of minutes away. We're racing through qualifying 1 here at Oulton Park. And it's Andrew Howard in the Beechdene Aston Martin on pole at the moment. Rob Collard would line up alongside him. Mark Warren and Alex Martin would make up row 2, and then this man would start 5th, Simon Orange. He did a lot of racing over in Spain and Portugal in the winter to keep himself sharp alongside his teammate Marcus Clutton, who we'll see out in the next session. In fact, they came very close to winning a championship over there in January and February. Simon's racecraft was what he was really working on. He's always been pretty quick and pretty consistent, but really worked on getting his elbows out, battling for track position, something he'll have to do at the start of Monday's first race. He backs out of that lap, so we'll switch our attention instead to the number 18 Mercedes. Now, I know I said Mercedes and Lamborghini have been the cars to have historically here at Oulton Park. The best Mercedes-AMG is Kevin Say, only 6th quickest at the moment. He drops down through Hislop, a slight improvement on his previous best in Sector 1. 34 thousandths up. How's he comparing in Sector 2? The grunt and go Mercedes heads over the crest at Clay Hill. The 6.3 litre V8 engine roaring as the noise reverberates beautifully around this parkland circuit. And he is improving again. Slightly off the ultimate pace, but this looks like a decent lap for Kevin Say, who we've seen go well here in the past at Oulton Park. Seem to recall him getting a pole position a handful of years ago here in a Mercedes. What can he do now at the end of the session? He will begin his final lap of the session, and he will move up surely, yes, from 6th to 4th, so he jumps a row forward, gets ahead of Simon Orange and Alex Martin, and the 63 of Rob Collard has a lap time disallowed, but not the lap time that set him that second fastest time. And in fact, speaking of Rob, he's just gone purple in the first sector, so Rob Collard with one last challenge to try and knock this man off provisional pole. Andrew Howard has it by 58 thousandths of a second, but there went Rob Collard past him, and Rob Collard with a purple first sector is starting his last challenge now to try and take that pole position away. Would be a great story to have Andrew and the Beechdene car at the front of the grid, but is Rob Collard going to upset that party? Down through Hislops goes Howard. He's not on a push lap. I'm intrigued to see this second sector time for Collard, though. He's a couple of cars ahead, I think, on the road. And we should be getting a time for him. Oh, no, it's gone away slightly in the middle sector. There is Collard. 3/10 off the ultimate best in Sector 2. But as I said, he did improve in Sector 1. A good final sector might just be enough. He only needs 58 thousandths of a second to match the time of Andrew Howard. 59 thousandths, technically, to take the pole position away. If they were, oh, it's not going to happen, is it? Because that was a huge slide out of the last corner, and I don't think that's going to help his lap time. Rob Collard breaks the timing beam, and yes, it's not an improvement. A 34.2, though. He was only a tenth of a second away from his previous best. Well, he must have lost a tenth in that slide at Lodge Corner. So it might have gone his way had it not been for that. There's Johnny Adam watching on. Johnny Adam, one of the most successful British GT drivers in history. Not racing these days in the championship, but he's there to support the Beach Team crew, who now prepare for qualifying session 2. That was Ross Gunn, who Johnny was congratulating. He'll be jumping into the car for session 2. And that car, by the looks of it, is going to be starting from pole position for race 1 on Bank Holiday Monday. Well, a very entertaining first session. Andrew Howard, by 58 thousandths, has done it. And he will be delighted with that. Hopefully we'll get a chance to hear from him, courtesy of Bryn Lucas, after the session, because I can't wait to get his thoughts. And yeah, we'll have to consult the record books to see when the last Andrew Howard podium was. In fact, I reckon Oracle of British GT, Tom Hornsby, might be on the case already. And if he's not, hopefully he's listening to me, and he is. So Andrew Howard then will hand over. There is Hugo Cook, who will be jumping into the 63 Lamborghini, which will start race 1 from the front row. What can Hugo do? Hugo, who was second in the championship last year, on his own, because of course Rob Collard missed a round last year, and you score in British GT based, it's individual driver finishes rather than your team that score the points. Hugo Cook will be out momentarily. Session 1 though in the books, and it's Andrew Howard in the Beach Team Aston Martin, which sets the fastest time. Beach Team Motorsport then will have pole position overall within the Silver Am category, but third overall is the Optimum Motorsport McLaren of Mark Warren. So they're your 2 class pole sitters. We actually only have a couple of the Silver Am drivers out there. Howard, Collard, Warren, the top 3, with Kevin Say for 2C's Mercedes in 4th. Alex Martin and Simon Orange will make up the 3rd row, ahead of Jonathan Beeson in that 44 BMW that flew at Silverstone. Mark Smith alongside him. Then Morgan Tilbrook and Ian Loggy complete the top 10, with Duncan Cameron in 11th position. Rodin's Ferrari only 12th quickest in the end. Cameron Campbell at the wheel, and Matt Topham from the Hiki 13th in the session. So Beach Team Motorsport celebrate pole position. Andrew Howard did the business by 58 thousandths of a second, and I believe Bryn Lucas has scurried down to the Beach Team Motorsport garage, and he'll catch up with Andrew now.
And that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Andrew Howard got out of the car, went into the garage, all sort of nonchalant, and then somebody said, "You're pole," and you went, "What?" You didn't know?
No, well, no, look, the team was saying roughly where you are, but I had Rob Collard behind me, okay? Super quick Rob. I'm just trying to stay out of his way, if I'm really honest. And then I thought, you know, could be the last time I race at Oulton. Might as well give it a go.
Never say that, never say that. Your last pole was, you say, Donington 2023. It's a while ago.
Yeah, look, it is, and it's all about state of mind. Sport is about a state of mind. And today, we just wanted to crack on. We've struggled, but you just want to have the car in the right place at the right time, and God knows how we've done it.
And your last time you got a pole, it was with the same driver pairing. Ross was in the car alongside you. Well, not alongside you, but, you know, mentally alongside you.
Yeah, look, it's fantastic what we've done recently, but to have the pros in the car and have the pros in the team is a massive, massive difference for me, and it allows them to focus on me being slightly selfish. And that's what they've been doing in the last 2 days. And all credit to the team and all credit to Ross. Thank you very much.
We're so glad to see you, starting on pole position. Go and celebrate with some champagne or some ice cream.
Ice cream. Thank you.
I had a feeling he was going to say that. Ice cream, the treat of choice in the Beach Team Motorsport garage, as has always been the case. Right then, session 2 underway, our second and final GT3 qualifying session. And this is now where the pro drivers jump into the cars, and this is where sometimes we turn our attention to lap records, the qualifying lap records. We watch Rob Collard debriefing there, I think, with the circuit commentary team. Qualifying lap record in GT3 set 3 years ago by Jules Gounon in a 2C's Mercedes, a 131.713. Casting my mind back to that weekend, I don't remember it being anything like as warm as it is today, so warmer track temperature, warmer ambient temperature generally means you don't get the absolute quickest lap times, but we'll see. We've got a very, very high level of talent on show in this session, with a bunch of, among them, factory drivers, hugely experienced professional GT drivers, all capable of extracting the absolute maximum from their cars. So we'll see what happens then in session number 2. There is the 77 car, so that's going to be the first one, I think, to begin a lap. That's Ben Barnicoat in the Optimum Motorsport McLaren that spun at this corner in the hands of Morgan Tilbrook in the first session, but Barnicoat avoids a similar fate, and we're right on board now with the McLaren driver as he heads into Old Hall corner, round the right-hander. He's a former factory McLaren driver, actually. He has raced at Le Mans, he's won at the Gulf 12 Hours, regular over in IMSA competition as well in America. As I said, some of the best in the world out in this session, and let's see what he's got for us. Down towards Island Bend, McLaren pitched into the corner, just about manages to grip through the turn. I think most teams putting fresh tyres on the cars for this session to give the drivers the maximum amount of grip possible. And he is so far fastest of anyone in the first sector. Now we head towards the Britain chicane. How much curb does he take? A moderate amount. You can't hammer these GT3 cars over the curbs in the same way you can other cars, less powerful and less aerodynamic cars. But still plenty of curb used through there. And again on the way into Hislop, avoid the tyre stack on the left. And again here on the right at Knickerbrook Corner, crucial exit here at Clay Hill. This camera angle massively flattens out just how steep that climb is over the crest and up towards the double apex right-hander at Druids. Pitches it in, hits the first apex, V's the corner off a little bit, comes back to the second apex, inch perfect over the exit curb, and Ben Barnicoat is putting together what looks like a pretty decent lap here. His first sector has been beaten, actually, by the Rodin Ferrari of Joshua Bookham. We'll get to him in a moment, though. Barnicoat's about to cross the line and set the benchmark. It is a 32.8, a 1 minute 32.8. So that's over a second away from the qualifying lap record, as if to illustrate the point about track conditions. What's Josh Bookham got for us, though? Josh Bookham in the Rodin car. Rodin much better known, really, historically, for their single-seater successes, previously running under a different team name, but now venturing into GT racing. And Josh Bookham, they've got the reigning Australian TCR champion, making his GT3 debut this year, actually, at Silverstone a few weeks ago. But acclimatising well, clearly. It's great to have Ferrari back in the championship and one of these new 296 GT3 Evos, no less. And this is a solid time being set by the Ferrari. Heads over the crest, much quieter engine note from the twin-turbo engine. And it's not quite as quick, actually, as the Optimum car. It's a 1/10 of a second slower, that for Bookham. But again, the Beech Dean Aston is looking strong. Ross Gunn, outright fastest middle sector. And I would expect these early lap times to be a bit more significant in this session. The pros tend to get the best out of the cars a bit sooner, and that is a good lap for Ross Gunn. 2/10 quicker than Barnicoat, a 1:32.589. And not actually fastest in any of the sectors, but consistent across the lap, and he's on provisional pole position. Marcus Clutton, though, is going better look in the first sector. Now, Marcus has possibly done more laps of Oulton Park than any other driver on the grid. For a lot of his formative years, he was a driving instructor here at Oulton Park and has raced many a time here, again, in that Fun Cup Endurance Championship, where he actually teamed up with Morgan Tilbrook for many a year. He's won a lot of races here. He knows how to get a good lap time out of his car around here. And he looks like he's right on the money. Purple first sector, personal best second sector. Ben Barnicoat has just gone fastest, by the way, in the 77, a 1:32.397 to improve upon the previous best time, but couldn't get anywhere near that. It's out of the final turn. Marcus Clutton currently 5th fastest. This looks certain to be an improvement. How much does he improve? To 3rd. The last sector got away from him slightly. And again, does this mean that he's just starting to run out of tyre a little bit? 78, Jared Waberski turns out of Lodge Corner. 20-year-old former GB3 podium finisher crosses the line, and he improves to 6th in the second of the Barwell Lamborghinis that Alex Martin puts into a top 5 starting position for race 1. And just outside that top 5 at the moment for race number 2. Back with Barnicoat, and with good reason. His first sector was fastest of anybody. His second sector of 44.7, though, was half a second off the pace, which I believe was his fastest. Yes, it was Barnicoat. In fact, Barnicoat holds all 3 of the fastest sector times, so that 1:32.397 was as close to a perfect lap as you can get. Is he capable of going any quicker, though? No, look, he's bailing for the pit lane with 3 3/4 minutes to go. I don't think this will be for a tyre change. That might be his session done. But Morgan Tilbrook, well, he looks a bit anxious for a man who is watching his teammate pretty much dominate this session so far. But he knows there could still be a late change in the order. So Barnicoat fastest by just under 2/10 from Ross Gunn. That beats the Aston Martin back up there again. Marcus Clutton third quickest. Fourth is number 18, 2C's Motorsport Mercedes of Ben Green. That's where Kevin Say managed to get the Mercedes in session 1 as well. And then this car, the Rodin Motorsport Ferrari, heads out of Druids. And Josh Buckham, the Australian driver, heads down into Lodge, turns into the right-hander. Part of an all-Australian lineup, actually. Cameron Campbell also hails from down under. And where is Waberski going to be? He stays 6th. It's an improvement in time, but not position. Incredibly tight there. The top 6 cars covered by only half a second. In fact, the top 7 by 7/10 of a second. The second fastest of those is Ross Gunn. Now, this is a good lap, actually. 2 personal best sectors so far, and he goes to the top by 1,000th of a second. Ross Gunn puts the Beechdew Motorsports Aston Martin back into provisional pole position. Andrew Howard did the job in session 1, and Ross Gunn has dragged a lap time out of the Aston Martin, and he goes top by the narrowest of margins. Ben Barnicoat, interestingly, has rejoined the session, so I wonder whether they have stuck another set of tyres on the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, and he's going to go back out. He'll have 1 more lap, realistically, to try and beat Ross Gunn, who goes to the top then. And a lap time disallowed for Martin Plowman in the Paddock Motorsport McLaren. But what a lap that was from Ross Gunn, and he's going quicker again on the next lap, a purple first sector for Gunn. So that's interesting, isn't it? Not only is the Aston Martin quick, but it's looking after its tyres, it would seem, pretty well to be able to keep pumping in these times late in the session. Back into Druids corner, meanwhile, comes the 78 Lamborghini. There's that time, a 10th faster in Sector 1 for Ross Gunn than his own previous, or the fastest of the session, which I think did still belong to Barnicoat, and he's got personal best in Sector 2. So if Barnicoat is going to steal this pole position back, he's going to have to go some. Back with the 78 Lamborghini, crossing the line, Jared Waberski, and 5th position for the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. Here comes Gunn. Is this going to be another improvement then? He's already on pole by 1,000th of a second. Can he increase the margin? Answer, yes, to nearly 2/10. Fantastic from Ross Gunn. That car is absolutely dialed in. The team are delighted. And Ross has probably got a bit of a smile on his face as well, I would imagine. He's backed off now. He knows that's probably the ultimate lap time he's going to get, but it was an outright fastest first sector, a personal best in Sector 2, and Sector 3 was within a few hundredths of his best from the lap before. So, GT3 qualifying, keeping us guessing. Is there still a twist in the story, though? Because Ben Barnicoat is back on track. We don't know whether they took an extra set of tyres on the McLaren. Yes, he did. Bryn Lucas reporting back. Yes, he did take a new set of tyres, so that's significant. So, a new set of Pirellis. He's not beating the time in Sector 1, but look at that, only 15 thousandths off, so that's basically matching the fastest time. But he needs to find now the best part of 2/10 of a second to steal pole position back. Over hilltop, driver's eye view as we plunge downhill, spot the braking point into his lops. Misses the worst of the curb there through the right-hander, interestingly. We saw some of the AM drivers taking more of that inside curb, but a neater line there for Barnicoat. Sector 2 coming up. What is the time? It's good, it's good, it's good enough for pole potentially. He's purple in the middle sector. It's all down to the last 2 corners now. Can Ben Barnicoat snatch pole position back away from Beechdew Motorsport and spoil the party, rather, for the team who already celebrated 1 pole position 10 minutes or so ago? Barnicoat rounds Lodge corner, keeps the rear of the car in check over the curb, over Deer Leap to the timing line, takes the shortest route to the line and goes second fastest, 19 thousandths of a second short, and it's not quite enough. And again, the Optimum team thinking, what do we have to do to get a pole position today? That is incredibly tight. He crossed the line and saw the checkered flag as well, so no time for another lap. That is it. It looks as though Beechdew are going to get a double pole position. Through goes Martin Plowman, he's 10th. We've got an interesting situation for 3rd, by the way, because Ben Green in the number 18 2Cs Mercedes has set exactly the same lap time as Hugo Cook in the 63 Lamborghini, except there's been a lap time disallowed somewhere, I think, because Cook now, in fact, no, Cook improved and took that back for third position. Well, Beach Team, job done. That's an incredible performance. Double pole position for Beach Team here at Oulton Park. And whether it's Andrew Howard or Ross Gunn in the car, it seems as though they are the team to beat so far this weekend. They've got two 60-minute races to go and win on Bank Holiday Monday, but they've put themselves in the best possible position at a track where overtaking is notoriously challenging. To start on the front row, to start on pole, is a good portion of the job done. Bryn Lucas is down there, about to catch up with Ross Gunn.
Well, Ross, 19 1,000ths of a second there. When we say about a car being dialed in, that's the epitome of it, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. I mean, that's definitely the most unexpected pole that we've ever had. Yeah, testament to the job that everybody's done in the team. They worked so hard. Since the test that we had a few weeks ago where we were miles off the pace, worked really hard to bring a car here that was definitely more competitive. Still going into quali, we were kind of thinking top 5 would be great, but pole is very unexpected, so just trying to take it all in at the moment because it doesn't feel real. But it's a great place to start the races on Monday. We know here it's very difficult to pass, so we knew that quali would be important. And can I just say as well, Andrew did an amazing job. I mean, yeah, that was probably the best I've ever seen him drive. So, and it's down to the hard work that he does in the truck, and yeah, very proud of what he did.
Bodes well for Monday. Good luck.
Thank you. Cheers.
Well, you wait 2.5 years for a pole position and 2 roll up at once. Fantastic day at the office for both of the Beach Team Aston Martin drivers and the team, who clearly have prepared an absolute rocket ship for Andrew Howard and Ross Gunn. And it is Ross in that second part of GT3 qualifying who did the business and claimed their second pole position in the space of about 10 minutes or so. The last one coming at Donington's deciding race at the end of 2023. So GT3 qualifying complete for race 2 on Bank Holiday Monday. A very similar picture at the front of the grid. The Beach Team Aston Martin, which will then be in the hands of Ross Gunn, sets the outright fastest time, whilst in Silverham, the 78 Bar1 Motorsports Lamborghini, which in that session was in the hands of Jared Weberski, did the business and set the fastest time in class. Beach Team then from Optimum's 77 car, which looked quick again, whether it was Ben Barnicoat and Morgan Tilbrook at the wheel. They'll be your front row for race 2. Hugo Cook and Ben Green were next ahead of Marcus Clutton, with Jared Weberski for Barwell, the silver and pole sitter, in 6th ahead of Josh Buchan, and then the 44 machine, the Century BMW of Charles Clark. Then it was the 2Cs Mercedes number 15 of Aaron Walker, who we heard from earlier on. Martin Plowman 10th ahead of Jack Brown, with Matt Griffin and Luke Garlick completing the 13 runners in GT3 Session 2. Well, just like that, we turn our attention from GT3 to GT4. These cars might be slower, they might not look quite as racy as the GT3s, but we know that these sessions can be just as competitive as GT3, and the racing certainly can be. And we've got an enticing mix of GT4 cars out this weekend. 11 GT4s entered into this second event of the season. And what are we going to see from the next 20 minutes or so? Exactly the same format as GT3, with 2 sessions, first of them setting the grid for race 1, the second for race 2. Qualifying 3 then, here at Oulton. And the GT4 cars just winding themselves up, getting themselves up to speed. And again, similar really to the GT3s. I think in these higher temperatures, we're likely to see the really quick times coming early on. Pole position, remember, last time at Silverstone went the way of innovation in their Ginetta. Tom Holland and Hadley Simpson getting the job done. They went on to win the race, and that was a bit of a turn up for the books, really, because GT4 over recent years dominated really by Optimum Motorsport and Century Motorsport. We're seeing one of the Century Motorsport BMWs on screen here. They had won every race between them, those two teams, stretching back to right here 2 years ago. And it was the first team other than Optimum and Century to win a race since then. Also the first Ginetta win in the championship since Snetterton 2023. So I wonder whether we're going to see a bit of a change in the form book this weekend. Oulton Park has traditionally been a good track for the Ginettas, and we'll wait and see if that's the same for the newer G56 GT4 Evo. On board then with the 24 car, which has Jack Collins at the wheel for the first session, and we can see here slight difference in body language between this and a GT3 car. The GT4's slightly higher off the ground, much less aero, and so they move around a little bit more on the track than the GT3 cars. But, Jack Collins, who ran in the Ginetta GT Championship last year, in fact was runner-up in that championship, drives the BMW that they've nicknamed Chomp. I'll leave you to figure out why. The livery, I think, possibly giving you a clue. Both of these drivers 19 years old. It's a very young lineup. He and Brandon Templeton, who has raced in GB4 in the past. He'll be taking over for the second session. But young lineup becoming more the norm these days in GT4 as these very rapid silver class entries start to really become a fact. There's been a slight tweak to the GT4 pit stop regulations, in fact regulations in general, for this weekend. It always used to be that the Silver Cup entrants used to have to carry more ballast in the cars than the Pro-Am entries, because in theory a silver-silver driver combo over the course of a race would outpace a Pro and an Am. They've got rid of that now, but they have introduced a sort of compensation time format for the podium finishers from the previous race, the same as we have in the GT3 and GT4 outright. Well, Silver Cup now also have a similar thing going on, so the top 3 Silver Cup crews from the previous race now serve an extra 15, 10 and 5 seconds respectively during their pit stops. We'll worry more about that on Monday, but just a little bit of housekeeping, a change of regs since the season opener at Silverstone, which, as I said, was won by the Ginetta. Will it be Aston Martin to the fore, though? That was the case in GT3, and we do have an Aston Martin. In fact, we've got 2. In fact, talking absolute nonsense, we've got 4 in this session, so there's a high probability of an Aston Martin being up there somewhere. The 97 could be one of them. John Hartshorn and Ronan Pearson, the driver pairing in that car. But it is Chomp, which is going fastest so far. Jack Collins here already going well. His banker lap, if you like, was 142.3, which is really quick, actually. That's not far away from a race lap record, which was set by Jack Brown a year ago for Optimum Motorsport. Middle sector is pretty strong as well. And this very distinctively liveried car, it's almost Demon Tweaks-esque, isn't it, for those who remember that fairly iconic livery within particularly national level motorsport. And as he accelerates up over the crest at Deers Leap, what is Jack Collins going to do? This will be a slightly better time, I suspect. Yes, a 42.252. He's got nearly half a second in hand at the moment over the first of those Aston Martin Vantage AMRs of Jessica Hawkins, who shares with Will Oulton. And Jess Hawkins, who has been getting quicker and quicker every time we see her out in that car. Was second. That's changed though, because Ginettas are starting to creep forward, and it's this car, the 74 from Innovation Racing, which has just gone second quickest with Hadley Simpson at the wheel. There is Jess Hawkins in the number 21 car. Aston Martin Formula 1 team driver ambassador these days. She's raced in W Series and became the first ever female to win a race in any sort of TCR competition right here at Oulton Park back in 2022, I seem to remember. At a British GT event, actually, when TCR was supporting British GT. And see them out with us again a bit later on in the year at Donington Park. But Jess Hawkins with history here at Oulton. It's a very different beast, of course, the Aston Martin Vantage GT4, but she's pedaling it well. A purple middle sector and a personal best in the first means that this could challenge for provisional pole. Down into Lodge she comes, pitches it into the right-hander, earlier turning in the GT4 cars, because again, they don't have that aero to depend on. You've got to get the car into the corner early, rely on the camber of the road to turn it through the right-hander, and she does go to the top by 1/10.5 nearly, although that I don't think is going to last for long, because Jack Collins is going even faster. Look, purple first sector, purple second sector, by 3/10 or so he's about to improve, and this could be an absolute barnstormer. Yes, a quarter of a second his advantage now, as Jack Collins puts the Century Motorsport BMW back to provisional pole. Here comes another of the Astons, the Grange Racing car, which will have Darren Turner in the car for the second session. Daniel Lavery in it at the moment, and he goes up to 4th as the Innovation squad prepare themselves down in the pit lane. Thomas Holland realising that the eyes of the world were on him there. And Thomas Holland will be jumping into the car at the end of this session, the Innovation car currently driven by Hadley Simpson. So, Jack Collins, Jess Hawkins, the front row at the moment. Hawkins is improving on the next lap, though. She has done a 25.0. That's right on the outright fastest pace, within half a tenth of the outright fastest first sector. So, if she can hook the middle sector together, this could be a really good lap. It's slipped away slightly. 49.0. And has she backed off? Yes, she has backed off. She's got time for one more lap, so I suspect maybe she's trying to cool the tyres down a bit, having realised the middle sector had gone astray. It hasn't gone astray for Jack Collins, though. He's just gone purple in the middle sector. Hadley Simpson on a good lap here as well. The Ginetta crests the rise at Clay Hill. There you can see on the right-hand side of the screen the Jack Collins time. He will be the first of these two to cross the line, so we'll follow the Century BMW first. Round Lodge. Here, the 3-litre twin-turbo engine whining away there as he tried to control the rear traction. Didn't quite manage to improve, but it was within a tenth of his previous best. Here now comes Simpson. What's this lap time going to be? It's the fastest of the session. Look at that. Hadley Simpson left it late, but a 141.810 by 43 thousandths is fastest. Tom Holland's pretty happy with that. And the cheer emanating from the garage caught his attention there, I think, as he realised that his car had gone to pole. And, in fact, the lap set by Jack Collins has been disallowed, so that's an even bigger advantage now for Hadley Simpson potentially. The 5th lap disallowed. In fact, no, that wasn't Collins' fastest lap in the end, so makes little difference. Purple first sector for Hawkins as well, don't count her out. The top 3 are only covered by 3/10. The top 2 separated by only 43 thousandths. There is Hawkins. So it was the middle sector where it went wrong somewhere a lap ago. Has she managed to hook together a better middle sector this time? Rumbles her way up Clay Hill. And what's the time going to be? It's a 48.7. So, outright fastest first sector, personal best middle sector. It's been an Aston Martin kind of day so far, hasn't it, in GT3? Has Jess Hawkins got what it takes in this final sector to make it 3 Aston Martin pole positions from 3 sessions so far? She'll have to go some. She needs a quarter, just over 3/10 of a second, actually, to steal pole away. What's the time going to be? Jess Hawkins to the line. It is... Oh, it's an improvement, but it's not enough to get on the front row. Within a 1/10 of a second or so of pole, but it's only 3rd quickest for Jess Hawkins. A good lap, though. That was a good lap for Jess, and proves that the Aston Martin has the pace, whether it's in GT3 or GT4 trim. Jack Collins came back through and didn't improve that time. And I think we're pretty much done now for significant improvements, although the 42 Toro Verde Ginetta of Luke Shaw has just done a personal best in the middle sector. He's 4th at the moment, but half a second or so adrift of Jess Hawkins. It was a big improvement, but not quite enough to take 3rd away. There is Luke Shaw, who has graduated up through the Ginetta GT Academy ranks for proper racing beginners, and makes his British GT debut this season. So there's the 61 BMW. Is that heading for the pit lane? I think it is, in the hands of Ernie Graham, who is a very experienced historic rallier, but not done a huge amount of circuit racing. The good news is he's got Colin Turkington as his driver mentor and indeed teammate. We'll see the Northern Irishman out in the next session. Colin Turkington, 4-time British Touring Car Champion. I think he's a decent person to have in your corner. And they've actually been putting out some interesting YouTube videos, that pairing, documenting Ernie's learning experience and Colin tutoring him along the way. Well worth a watch. So as GT4 session 1 winds down, we've got the pit lane again about to burst into life. Driver changes, tyre changes likely going on as well. In the meantime, let's take a look at who went fastest in the session. Fastest in Pro-Am was Luke Shaw, but he's actually only 4th on the grid. The outright pole, as indeed was the case for the top 3 positions overall, were silver class entrants, and it was Innovation Racing picking up where they left off at Silverstone, and the 74 machine in the hands of Hadley Simpson set the fastest time. Jack Collins for Century was second, with Jess Hawkins putting in a good effort. The Aston Martins looking strong in both classes this weekend. She'll start third ahead of Luke Shaw, who is the Pro-Am pole sitter. Then it was the 27 machine of Daniel Lavery, 5th, 6th for Josh Stanton. 7th position then for another of the Aston Martins. That is James Townsend, ahead of Ian Duggan and Ernie Graham for WSR Flexifly. Mahiki were 10th, Blake Anglis in the car, and it was the GBR Stratton Motorsport Aston Martin in the hands of John Hartshorn, who set the 11th fastest time. Good chance, of course, that will all change around in session 2, but that is your provisional grid for race 1 in GT4. One more session to go, and are Innovation going to continue their sort of dominance of British GT4 so far this season? They obviously were the team to beat last time out. It was the Hadley Simpson Thomas Holland car that started on pole and won the race. Can they do the same thing again on Bank Holiday Monday? Well, they've got one more pole to go for, and that is coming up next. So, congratulations down in the pit lane. Hadley Simpson gets out of the car. Thomas Holland will be getting plugged in as we speak. And what a lap that was, coming again quite late in the session. That could be significant. We're expecting even warmer temperatures on Monday, temperatures climbing towards 30 degrees ambient temperature. So tyre management's going to be key, and it seems like the Innovation Ginetta looks after its tyres pretty well. Bryn is down there to hear from our race 1 pole sitter.
Yeah, I certainly am indeed. Now, last time out at Silverstone, there was you and your teammate were so excited, Thomas, about the fact you got the victory, and it's carried on into Oulton Park, that form.
Yeah, it certainly has. It wasn't easy. Obviously, we didn't do testing last week, which the majority of the grid did, so we were on the back foot yesterday and we didn't know where we would be. So it's nice to be on the top step, and yeah, nice to be back.
Behind you, there was a bit of pressure being put on you by Jessica Hawkins down there, but she didn't quite get it done at the end, and it was fine margins, as it always is around here.
Yeah, that's what you want. I mean, you never want to come to a championship and be able to walk it, and fortunately at British GT we're not. So it's always nice to have competition. It's what makes me a more complete driver. So yeah, I love it.
What have you been able to say to Thomas about extra lap time out there where he might be able to find those crucial tenths?
Yeah, I'm sure Thomas has been really fast. He loves Oulton Park. Hence why he's doing quali 2. I've got full confidence in Thomas to bring it home for us as well. But yeah, fingers crossed.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Yep, he's pretty happy, and as well he might be. Thomas Holland puts the Innovation Racing Ginetta on pole position for race 1 on Bank Holiday Monday. Can they do the double, as Beach Team Motorsport did in the GT3 sessions? Well, we're about to find out. Final qualifying session here at Oulton Park gets underway, and the cars are released out onto the circuit. And a whole new group of drivers head out. Now, this is the session where perhaps the Pro-Am teams come into their own. Of course, the Pro-Ams put their Am driver out for session 1, the Pro out for session 2. So the Pro, understandably, quicker than the Ams. At least that's how it should work. And they should now be more competitive, whereas the Silver Cup entrants, well, they have 2 fairly evenly matched drivers. So whilst they did lock out the top 3 positions, the Silver teams in session 3, will that be the case in session 4? It's going to be a bit tougher in this one. So the final qualifying session then of the afternoon, and the GT4 cars once again rumble around the Oulton Park circuit. 11 cars out there, plenty of space for them all, so we haven't seen traffic management be too much of an issue. That will definitely change on Monday, when on such a narrow circuit, often the most excitement in the races comes when the GT3s come around to lap the GT4 cars. That's when things can start getting very, very dicey. And the GT4 drivers will be relishing this opportunity to not have to share the track with the GT3s. In fact, it's the only time all weekend where they have this luxury, because in both free practice and pre-qualifying, which took place earlier on today, all of the cars are out there together for an hour in each session. This is the only time the classes are separated all weekend long. So clear track, beautiful conditions, a driver's favourite racetrack to tackle, and 10 more minutes to decide our final pole sitter of the weekend. We follow here the Mahiki Racing McLaren, which turns down into Lodge Corner. It is Revy Lake at the wheel. Revy, the youngest driver in British GT this year, and if Revy were to win a race, would become the second youngest driver ever to win a British GT race. see whether or not that McLaren is a contender over the course of the next 10 minutes. There's the 24 car, which will line up on the front row for race 1. Brandon Templeton now hoping to get it onto pole position for race 2. Accelerates over the hill. We ride on board again with the Century BMW. And Brandon Templeton, who made his British GT debut last year, 4th in GT4 last year. Racing with Century Motorsport, but with Chris Salkeld on that occasion. Chris not racing with us currently, but good to have him back in the championship at some point. Caught up with him at Silverstone actually a few weeks ago. He said as much, that it was a bit strange to be there watching, not in the car. Who knows, we might have him back out there in the future. But Brandon Templeton, more than capable. He was front runner in GB4 a couple of years ago, regular podium finisher. But like so many young single-seater drivers these days, electing to make the switch from single-seaters to GT racing, because it just seems there are more opportunities out there for a young, aspiring professional driver to make a career out of racing GT cars. And certainly a lot less of a challenge, a lot less of a financial challenge than trying to clamber your way up the single-seater racing ranks. And that's part of what makes GT racing, particularly in GT4, I'd have to say, so exciting these days, with so many of these youngsters coming out of single-seaters. That's where a lot of these silver-graded drivers come from the single-seater world. And watching them transition into GTs and seeing who does that better, perhaps, is absolutely fascinating. Ronan Pearson, well, he's not made a transition from single-seaters to GTs. He's come from the world of touring cars, did a couple of seasons in BTCC, and has now made the move over into GT4 competition this year, and he is at the wheel now of the GBR Stratum Motorsport car, which comes across the line and sets, at the moment, the fastest lap time of 41.855. The qualifying lap record, for what it's worth, in GT4, Charles Clark from 3 years ago, 139.7. But based on what we saw in the GT3 sessions, I don't think the track conditions are necessarily going to allow for us to beat that. Chap Mitchell's giving it a good go, though. Look at this, purple first sector, purple second sector, and the 42 Ginetta by Torre Verde GT now starts to come to the fore. Chap Mitchell, very rapid driver. 2014 Ginetta Junior champion, and he has been running to a lot of the racetracks, or plans to run to a lot of the racetracks this year to raise money for charity. Ran all the way from his home down south up to Oulton Park in the week. Hopefully he's caught his breath. He might have lost it again now, though, given how rapid that lap was. A 1:41.4 is not the fastest lap of the session, though, because the 21 MK Racing Aston Martin of Will Oulton has just pipped him to the top spot by 68 thousandths. So Will Oulton, in the car that was pedalled to third in the previous session by Jess Hawkins, has now gone to provisional pole. What can Darren Turner do about that, I wonder? Darren Turner, the longest serving factory Aston Martin driver in their history, a 3-time Le Mans winner, and former British touring car race winner, of course, so he knows the British tracks well. He's raced in British GT for a number of years as well, on and off. And he is about to break the timing beam in the Aston Martin. Is it another Aston Martin to the top? No, third though, so a solid lap that from Turner. He's potentially going to have a bit of traffic on the next lap, so he might have to have a cool-down lap to cool the tyres off, but also try and find some clear air. Having said at the start of the session that traffic shouldn't be an issue, they've all sort of gathered together in the first sector. Will Oulton isn't in the first sector, though. He's already been and gone, and fastest of anyone in that first sector as well. Heads out of Knickerbrook Corner to the Clay Hill section. What does the 74 Ginetta have for us? Nothing significant for Thomas Holland on that lap. He stays down in 9th position. Will Oulton's middle sector got away from him slightly as well. Here is the Aston Martin driver, and I'd say he's potentially backed off, hasn't he, in the final sector? Yes, I don't think he's at full speed. So saw Jess Hawkins do this, remember, late in her session, and then went quicker on the next lap. And again, it was the middle sector where things fell apart for Jess, but she was able to regroup on the next lap. We'll see whether or not Will Oulton's able to do the same thing. Had a new fastest time set by Jack Mitchell, by the way. He's now nearly half a second clear of Will Oulton, so Oulton's going to have to find a fair chunk to challenge for pole. But we'll be watching to see what the sector times are like. Sector 1 is a short one. It ends about 2/3 of the way down the Lakeside Straight, which we're approaching. So the right-hander at Old Hall, the left-hander at Cascades, and then up through the gears down the Lakeside Straight. And Will Oulton's first sector time will be in momentarily. It's not an improvement, a couple of tenths off the outright best, set by Jack Mitchell, who we ride on board with again. here, the thundering 6.2 litre V8 of the Ginetta E56, rumbling away underneath us, over hilltop, and making his way back down towards his laps. I'm trying to figure out if he's on a push lap or not here. It doesn't look like he's attacking massively. Yeah, first sector about a second off the pace, so I think he's maybe backing off for one more go at this. Glorious noise that Ginetta makes as it accelerates up the hill and heads towards the end of another lap. He'll have time if he wants it for 2 more laps after this, but I don't know whether he's going to bother with that or not, whether he thinks he's already as quick as he can go. Tom Bradshaw here in the Porsche 718 Cayman for Toro Verde GT. He comes across the line, was 8th, goes 5th actually, because I think we've had a lap time disallowed from somebody. Yes, we have. Brandon Templeton in the 24 BMW, which was second fastest in the first section. It's second to last in this one. So Templeton's going to have to up his pace a little bit. Decent lap that, though, for Bradshaw, who moves up into 6th position and only needs a 1/10 of a second to potentially move to 3rd, actually. Darren Turner currently holds that 3rd position. Here is Darren, more or less matching the pace in Sector 1. Sector 2, we're aiming for a minute 12.999. He is at a minute 13.3. 3/10 or so away from the outright pace. Looks as though we've had the best of the lap times now. In fact, Jack Mitchell has pitted, so he wasn't going to try and do another lap. But there's still stuff to be learned here. Even if you're not necessarily now gunning for an outright fastest time, the more track time you can get over these weekends, the more you learn about tyres and about the car. And this is only a 10-minute run, but with an in-lap as well, you can get 6, maybe 7 laps out of this session. And it's all valuable learning. 74 turns through Lodge Corner. And Thomas Holland not quite able to replicate the pace set by his teammate Hadley Simpson, but he is 4th and is improving here to 3rd, actually. So Holland jumps ahead of Darren Turner by 9 thousandths of a second.
Holland's just gone P3 with a 41.5.
Yes, he has. He's after my job. Thomas Holland has gone 3rd with a 141.552 to be precise. And the lines of communication strong up and down the pit lane, clearly, because drivers want to know what the cars around them are doing. I think Will Oulton is heading into the pit lane. Yes, he is. So Will Oulton heads in. The number 21 Aston Martin then, 3rd in session 1. There's Jess Hawkins, who powered the car to 3rd in the first session. Gives us a thumbs up. She's happy with how her afternoon is going. And Will Oulton has put the car onto the front row now for race number 2. Jess will take over at the pit stops, all being well. And that looks like a competitive pairing this weekend. OK, Jack Mitchell is nearly half a second quicker than anyone else in this session, but over a race distance with the possibility of safety cars, traffic, pit stops. Remember, this will be the 2nd race as well, so there'll be compensation time to be served in the pit stops for some teams, depending on where they end up in race 1. So they could still be contenders for at least 1 race victory tomorrow. Darren Turner's going to finish the lap, not improving massively in the early sectors, although a personal best in Sector 2. Is this enough to get 3rd place back? Answer, no. 41.583, only 0.02 of a second away from his previous best, but he takes the checkered flag and is in fact the first driver to take the checkered flag. Looks like Tom Bradshaw maybe is improving in the Porsche. Personal best in the middle sector. Fastest of anyone in the speed trap, interestingly, so the Porsche Cayman operating well in the speed trap at the top of Clay Hill, and he is about to cross the line. So as we watch Will Oulton come in and celebrate with the team, MK Racing pleased with a front row starting position, but it's Jack Mitchell who gets pole position for race 2, and his teammate Luke Shaw is in the pit lane now with Bryn Lucas.
Thanks very much there, Andy. I'm speaking to Jack's teammate. I mean, we were watching on here, half a second up. That's a mighty, mighty lap.
Yeah, considering we didn't get out in pre-quali, it was really good, and Jack's just done a really good job. Excellent.
Certainly bodes well for Monday. Good luck to you.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah, good stuff for Toro Verde then. Fastest in session 2. They were up there in session 1 as well. And I think that is going to be a pairing we'll be talking about a lot more on Monday afternoon. 2 races for the British GT drivers on Bank Holiday Monday. But it is Ginetta once again looking strong, topping the times in both GT4 sessions. It was all Aston Martin in GT3, and it's all Ginetta. It's all very British, isn't it, in the British GT Championship this weekend? The British marks going well. Toro Verde then on outright and Pro-Am pole. As I sort of predicted, it's a Pro-Am car on outright pole, but a silver pole sitter in MK Racing, and they will start on the front row overall, with Will Oulton doing the business. Jess Hawkins was quick in the first session as well. Mitchell and Oulton then will make up that front row for race 2. Thomas Holland and Darren Turner will make up the second row. Fifth quickest was Bradshaw, with Ronan Pearson, another one of those Aston Martins, 3 of them in the top 6 positions. Then Luca Hopkinson ahead of 4-time British Touring Car champion Colin Turkington. Brandon Templeton was 9th, 10th quickest then for the number 40 of Joe Wheeler. So, a couple of interesting GT4 qualifying sessions, 4 entertaining qualifying sessions and 2 entertaining races coming your way on Monday. The first of those races due to kick off at about 11:05. We'll have build-up 10 or 15 minutes before that, and 3:45 in the afternoon, the second of those 60-minute races. They're short races, they're always action-packed. The weather is set to be scorching hot, and I suspect the on-track action is going to match those temperatures after 4 very competitive qualifying sessions today. Set the stage for rounds 2 and 3 of the 2026 British GT Championship. Ginetta on pole for both races in GT4. It's the Beach Team Motorsports Aston Martin, though, which has pole position in GT3 for both of our Bank Holiday Monday races. Can they get themselves a race victory? It would bring the house down if they were able to. Aston Martin looking strong at Oulton Park. Join us on Bank Holiday Monday then for rounds 2 and 3 of the British GT Championship.